is a definition of a disruptive student. And that, once again, is a kid who's not unproductive. He's not doing his work. You should come to school for academic tasks. All that other stuff is extracurricular. School is about academic production. So you actually become a disruptive student if you're not academically productive. We're not kicking out honor roll students and 4.0 students. When you start checking the kids that we're putting out there, we're putting out the kids that are academically struggling. And that's the fact of it. So that's what makes me say, listen, folks, let's look at what we're really doing. Not respond, stop, red flag. We're kicking out people who are academically struggling. So if you're kicking out someone who's academically struggling, that's telling me there's something behind the behavior. I mean, a kid comes to my mind that I saw yesterday at one of the schools that I work with. Is this kid wants to wander the halls all day. When I sat the kid down 1-to-1, I gave all the kids in the school one of my books to read. It's a high school. It's an alternative school. I gave every kid in the school one of my books to read. That's very readable, easily read. It's their issue. It touches them. And this kid just keeps skimming through it. We find out after digging in, and I have to go pull his reading scores, and the kid can't read. So he's struggling in the classroom. So his way of dealing with his academic deficits is wandering the hallways, trying to socially engage with staff, and kind of is a problem, but is not a problem to us, but is a wanderer. Why? He can't read. And that's what we're talking about. That's what I'm talking to you about. So this conduct is a precursor to other things. So the common behavior referrals that I see working with my clients all over the nation, that's from the West Coast, down south to East Coast, New York, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Boston, what I've seen is profanity. Now, if you're hearing profanity, then think about it. Profanity, willful defiance, and fighting. These are the three common behavior referrals. Our response to them is suspension. Okay, now what I'm saying is if profanity is the sanction. Now, can you use profanity in school? No, absolutely not. But what happens is there's some things that are going on prior to the kid cursing us out, slipping in a word. I am of the belief if a kid is using profanity, he has an extremely limited vocabulary. What would be the benefit of kicking a kid out who is profane, that's illiterate, and has a small vocabulary? Where did he learn it from? Home, the limited vocabulary university. So you're sending him back home to limited vocabulary university? His mother knows he talks like that. They're aware of it. So what I'm saying to schools is we got to kind of look out for ourselves. It's like we got to kind of figure out some of these issues. If our own children are using profanity, they're picking it up from us. So what is our intervention as a parent? Mine would be 25 new words. Grow the mind, grow the intellect so you can grow your brain. Not just sit here with a limited vocabulary. You got 5 words in your Rolodex and you pull out the one when you get frustrated and you start wanting to curse people. It's a deficit that we could solve. I've had schools literally say, I never thought about it, and tried it. And it absolutely works. The point is, if that's the kid's issue, then we'd have to solve his problem. Sending them home to the parent that taught him that is not going to help us. That's my whole deal. If suspensions fixed it, let's do it. If I could suspend a kid and he would respond and I could correct his behavior, I would endorse the suspension. You have to realize that a lot of times we let things go so far to where when he does start cussing people out, we do have to suspend him. He's out of control. F everybody. Yeah, he's got to go now because he's in the wrong spot. But what we found is that this behavior has been going on. There's been precursors to it. And that's where I'm getting at. The only way you can deal with behavior is through proaction. If you're waiting to deal with a behavior once a kid uses profanity, curses at somebody, wants to threat, be a bully, wants to fight, he's willfully defying you. What does willful defiance mean? They don't like you. They are defying you. It's willful to you. It's willful. Meaning I am willingly defying what you're saying. I am trying to hurt you. Specifically, I'm trying to cause you a problem. Something that we need to think about. We don't think like that. We gloss that over. We just say he's insubordinate. He's got to go home. That will never solve our problem for us. Fighting is a red flag, because I found that we'll suspend and let them come back for fighting. And that's a red flag with me, because once a person is assaultive, I want to do something different with them. Remember, I'm a juvenile guy. I lock people up. So that fighting and assaulting people is something I take very seriously. And that's not something you're getting back in school with. I'm going to look to see what's happening there and see what degree can I get you some treatment or some restrictive justice, because you have to. It's no longer the theory that, oh, the kids just had a fight. We'll talk to one principal in the South, and at an elementary school, and he was saying, well, that's just boys being boys. And I said, that's the naivety of you. You're naive, and you think that's just boys being boys. But what you have is the precursor to terrorist conduct. I can punch you when I get mad. I can punch a teacher when I get mad. And that's what I'm trying to train teachers in. There's precursors to school shooters. There are precursors to gang activity. There's precursors to abusive husbands and fathers. And that's what we're seeing in the school. That's what I'm talking to us about. The time becomes now to close the relationship gap. Because in order for you to have a better rapport with a kid, you're going to have a better relationship with them. And we spend our time talking about the closing the achievement gap. Listen, guys, our achievement gap is a result of our lack of relationship. I mean, to say we got an achievement gap problem is foolish to me, because that would be denoting that the teachers are not trained and they don't know what they're doing. That's not true at all. We got the best trained teachers in the world. Teachers are trained. They know what they're doing, but they don't know how to relate to the kid. They don't know how to relate to a kid that's cursing. They don't know how to relate to a kid that doesn't like them. They don't even recognize that they may present themselves in an unlikable way. They don't even recognize their own personality types, which causes conflicts with students. At some point in time, we have to stop spending our energy talking about race, which is foolish. We talk about race, and then we want to talk about poverty. Poverty, this is the hook with poverty. Poverty really promotes self-hate, and people don't like themselves. So if you get people who might not have the highest self-esteem, and you start putting them in environments and you think you're going to build a good relationship with them, you got middle-class working teachers, middle-class Americans mixing in there with kids of poverty, particularly if you're in a Title I program. But you're trying to relate them. So the gap that needs to be closed is the relationship gap. We don't relate. A lot of our teachers don't have good relationship skills, as evident from their relationships with their own spouse, with their own kids. They don't even relate to their boss. And we sitting here want to spend our time talking about achievement gap, beating the teachers up, talking about race. Man, we've been doing that for 2 decades. We've got no progress. We've made no progress. We're actually in a worse place than when we started. Okay, no child left behind. We're in a worse spot than when we started. Why? What was the training? The training's the key. And that's what we're talking about, is you have to be trained in a different area. In dealing with relationships with students, that is not an automatic. There's no course for that when you're going to college and being trained as a teacher. We have one class on classroom management. We don't talk about suspensions and removal, so we're ill-equipped to fight the fight we're fighting. That's what has made Don't Kick 'Em Out what it is. A classic training in behavior fundamentals. We have got to learn how to relate to our students. And guys, there are some people we cannot work with. But what I'm saying is, you'd have to get so well trained that you would know that at the beginning. I was at one school in Oregon that really made an impression on me, because their school culture, where they just could not deal with behavior problems. It was just a pure academics school. It was purely about academics. It was always about that from its foundation. And then they started, and so obviously when the community hears that this is such a great school, people who it didn't work out other places start saying, man, maybe it could work for my kid. And so they start mixing in kids who had been kicked out of other places. And it totally ruined the culture of their school. They didn't know what to do with these kids. They're in there punching other kids, threatening teachers. They don't know what to do with this kid because they're not trained. They're trained and we teach our subject core. We love our kids and go home. So now you mix in 3 kids that hold the whole school hostage. We don't know what to do. So it requires new knowledge. It's a new skill set. Behavior is a new skill set. When the problems get to a certain level, you have to be retrained in how to manage the problem. So it's closing the relationship gap. How do I relate to this situation? It's certain kids, and it is respectful to know sometimes that your school is ill-equipped to manage a situation. And that is the maturity of running a school. There are so many schools in America that are ill-equipped to manage the issues that their school is serving. So you've got to make some changes for the sake of safety and security for your teachers, for the academic production, for the student. We have to close the relationship gap. It is how we're relating. It's what kind of program that we are conducting. How do we go about closing that relationship gap? It is the don't kick them out training. It is very, very simply, it is to help the staff to better understand the issues that are coming. If you know you don't want to have a school year like you've had this year, you don't want to go into next school year that way, use the opportunity to use this training to close out the school year the right way. Use the summer to get trained. What we like to say is that teachers are like professional athletes. Professional athletes get better over the summer. We know folks have their break and everything, but there's so many districts and schools that use summer trainings to get better. You can't think that if you don't get the appropriate training, you're going to go back and have a good season, which is a school year. It's just like athletes. You got to train and work on areas which you are weak. If behavior and classroom management is an area that your school is weak, the Don't Kick 'em Out book and training is dynamically a problem solver for you because it gives you the right paradigm. We're not focusing on race. If race is your issue and that's the way you think solves this problem, you're going to lose. We're not having a race issue. We're having a relationship issue. And if you don't know how to relate to kids, don't know how to relate even to your boss, you don't know how to relate to your peers, you don't know how to relate to your own family, it's a personality issue. We've got to fix it. We have got to work on it. You cannot teach with a lot of the personalities that we have teaching today. It's going to create a conflict with the student. It's definitely going to create a conflict with the parent. It's going to create a conflict with your boss. And because now all of a sudden you're kicking kids out, now the principal and the dean of students got to run down there and save you in your classroom. It is not the way to go. It is the Don't Kick 'em Out book and training series. It's available right now at the end of the school year. Many people are using it over the summer, and we have very limited days in August and September. However, call, investigate, check for your date.